Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Griever Productions and to a brand new show that we are calling Saturday is for the Voice. So what I plan to do in this series is give the absolute basics of tips and tricks going from beginner vocalists to advanced vocalists and things to think about throughout your journey. Is this going to be a one-stop shop for how to learn to sing? No, absolutely not. But it is going to handle some basics and some things maybe you haven't thought of before. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, right, is breathing. And a lot of people kind of go, well, breathing is something that happens all of the time. We've been breathing since we were born. Correct, yes. But breathing when we are singing is a completely different beast. Now, as I've mentioned in some of the reaction videos that I've done, what tends to happen usually, right, when a new student comes into my studio, we'll see their shoulders rise like this. And what this does, right, is it puts all of the oxygen in here, and it doesn't kind of fill up the lower lung, and it puts tension throughout all of this part of your neck and the upper part of the shoulders here. This is something that we don't want to do, right? So the reason is, when we do this, right, and we have that tension there, here is where our larynx or our vocal cords are situated. What we don't want to do is create tension around them because we need them to go together properly, right? So I will put up a graphic to show you what the vocal cords look like and what they're supposed to look like when you are at rest and when you are singing. If we have too much tension, what can happen is, right, so if we put the tension up the front of the voice, the front of the vocal cords, rather, so what you'll get is the tip of my fingers, imagine the tip of my fingers are at the front here. Instead of it being perfectly like that, they'll go like that, and then you see that gap that appears at the bottom there? So what happens is the front of these start rubbing, and then we end up with problems such as nodules, issues like that. So what we want to do is avoid this entirely. What a lot of people will teach originally when you first go to them is to breathe using your stomach. And it's an easy thing to do, right? All you need to do is have a think about it. You can actually do it in the mirror. It makes it a lot kind of easier to understand. Is you can put your hands on your stomach, right? Relax the shoulders, and then just breathe in. And you can see that this is all what moved, not here. And when there's no tension. There's no tension in this area. So give that a go. Basically what we want to do too, right? A lot of people say when you breathe and when you are singing, it is a requirement that you need to use your diaphragm. Now, this is something that's interesting to me, right? Because when it comes to the phrase, use your diaphragm, I always encourage people to ask their teacher, what does that mean? Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people will use the term, use your diaphragm, when you're singing, which means you are going to be expelling air at that point, right? And fact of the matter is, there's nothing you can really do to engage your diaphragm at that point, because what all the diaphragm is doing is, yes, it contracts to let air in, and then it just relaxes when the air goes out. So basically what happens is, right, that diaphragm will contract when you're breathing in, and you can feel it. It sits just underneath your lungs. And then when you breathe out, it actually just relaxes. It doesn't actually do anything much more than that. What actually helps you breathe out are your intercostal muscles and your abs. So what people usually mean when they say use your diaphragm, right, is the fact that in order to put sufficient pressure on that area, in order to maintain a more controlled and focused sound and a more even sound, it's actually you more tensing your muscles and pushing down. So one of my classical teachers actually described it as it almost feels like what happens when you're on the toilet, right? Obviously without the actual expulsion of waste, right? So if you take a deep breath using that area, and then you hold that part and then kind of push down with your abs, almost as if you were on the toilet. That is the sufficient pressure that you need in order for your voice to come out as cleanly and smoothly as it can. Now, something that a lot of people will ask straight off the bat is, hey, I don't have very good lung capacity. What can you suggest? Now, there's a couple of things. A very basic exercise, there is a very basic exercise which I can run you through. But the thing that I recommend most is going swimming. Swimming has been known to kind of engage those muscles, and it works as cardio and all of that sort of thing, but it also does help the maintenance of your lung capacity and being able to hold your breath whilst you're underwater. However, failing that, if you do not wish to do that, there is a breathing exercise that I pretty much run at least once a day. I still maintain it, and it's a breathing exercise where we count from 1 to 6, then 1 to 8, then 1 to 10, right, in our heads. But as we do that, right, we want to start empty, completely empty of air, and then by the time we get to 6, we want to be filled with air. So we want to go from empty to full in that time, and then we run it backwards. So we go from 6 to 1, starting full, and then going to empty. So I'll demonstrate. Okay, empty. Okay. What we want to do from that is then increase it. We go to 8, and then we go to 10. Now, the reason for this, right, it actually becomes harder to go. It actually becomes harder to do as you go. And the reason for this is what you're not used to doing when you speak, right, is actually controlling exactly how that breath is coming out. And this is a very good way to determine how good your control is and to make it better. Sure, if you can do that, then you can move it on. 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. But it's important that you are empty at the start and then full at the end, and then vice versa, because that is how you get the control of your breath. Hey, sorry, Future Jim here. Something that I forgot to mention that is super important with this exercise is that when you're breathing in and out, you need to have that breath coming in at a consistent pace. So starting empty at 1 and full at 6, you need to breathe in such a way. You need to breathe in such a way that it is consistent the whole way through. You don't want to be taking in little breaths here and there to try and make it. You want to keep it consistent as you sing. Keeping in mind as well, there are certain conditions in which your lung capacity can be affected. I, for one, a few months ago came out of a very bad batch of pneumonia, and during the course of that, my lung capacity went to absolute hell. Like, it was gone, right? But this breathing exercise, this technique, managed to enable me to get it back up. Maybe not quite to what it was. It's still trying to kind of get there a little bit. However, it is significantly better than what it was. And I do highly recommend doing it in order to just see how your breathing is going. But anyway, I feel like that is the absolute basics on breathing. I feel like that is basically what I would go through with my students in their first lessons if they were completely brand new. If they weren't, then we would, find out where they were in their kind of singing journey, and we would start at a different point. But usually for brand new students, breathing is where I would start because it is super, super important. So anyway, I do hope that you found this useful. I hope that you've learned something a little bit from this at least. And let me know if you'd like to see more of these. Let me know if you would like to see a little more tips and tricks as we go along. And let me know what you would like to hear about. If you guys have questions for things that you've seen before, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them as best as I can. And we'll see what we can do. So thank you guys so much for watching this. Like a favorite if you enjoyed, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye for now.